IVM.
Welcome to Think Fast. What we do on this show, me and the encyclopedia that is Suchita Salwan. We talk about everything from tech to business to startups to marketing, media, and pretty much anything that catches our fancy. And this week, we're going to be double tapping to a bunch of really interesting things. What are we talking about? This week, we're going to talk about the stuff that's happening at Netflix in India specifically. Reed Hastings made a few comments and, that's had interesting conversations going to ripple up all over Twitter, especially people talking about all the stuff that's happening there. I'm going to fanboy on the fact that Uday Shankar is coming back. Hopefully, it seems pretty likely that he's going to come back and kind of take the realms at, or rather help operate Viacom 18 with Reliance kind of doubling down into that. And we also have not just media news today, we also have a lot of stuff happening, or rather, we're going to be almost getting a masterclass in NFTs from Nameet Potnis. But before anything else, Suchita, what's been up with you? What are we talking about?
Oh man, I am still freezing in Delhi and sitting on top of 6 heaters now and a hot water bottle. So that's me. Jumping right in to what matters, which is our bud, not our bud, but let's hope one day he'll be our bud. Elon Musk seems to be a major inspiration for a lot of tech bros. I don't know if you saw this, but Mr. Bhavish Agarwal jumped on the Bernal meme bandwagon with his fairly petty retort to a journalist who criticized Ola scooters and Ola Electric. Don't get me wrong, I totally empathize and sympathize with founders who get, irked or ticked off when their company is, lightly. And it's not like the journalists even shat on Ola Electric. They just made, a general observational type comment, whatever. Basically, he lost it. Came up with this ridiculous Bernal meme. I don't know, man. And I know this is not going to be a part of our conversation today, but I feel like Indian male founders need to be more inspired by folks like Brian Chesky than Elon Musk. I feel like there's too much of testosterone, overdose happening.
There is one founder I like a lot, just because I think he stays away from all of this. That is Kunal Shah. I think Kunal Shah on Instagram is really fun because he shares some really fun memes and stuff like that. And he's having fun. Or on Twitter, he's going more Naval zone of things. But he hasn't done any of these, at least from what I've seen. So I think something to learn there. Have a little bit of, maybe some sense of humor is required.
Sometimes I find his tweets very passive aggressive. I'm just aaj aapke din mein kya hua tha? You have come up with this
well, that's still fun, but as long as it's not snappy, I guess.
There's actually many others, but a bunch of these, tech bros seem to have very fragile egos. But, putting that aside, Fab India and both are ready to IPO.
Yes.
Both's IPO was hush/, going through the rumor grapevines. But I think it's official now. And of course, we are seeing a lot happening in the syndicate space, and rather the formalization of syndicate space with Amish and Shweta Rao and Jiten Gupta launching their, $40 million fund called White Venture Capital, which sees the likes of even Sequoia as an LP in their fund. In fact, if you remember in our first or second episode, we spoke about Better Capital and how a lot of these syndicates that may have started off, in an unorganized fashion on AngelList and the likes, they've, found a way to really create that growth capital or create more formal ways of investing in companies. In happier, brighter news, there's this really cool company called Stand Plus, which is a 10-minute ambulance service company, and they recently raised about $20 million. I think this is great, man, in an era of...
My favorite meme of recent times is this meme where, there's a Drake meme where Drake's looking at something and he's happy looking at something else. It's like looking away at 10-minute delivery and looking happy when it's 10-minute ambulance service. I think that's the right way to look at it.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. And it seems like NFTs are going to be all the rage with everyone from Viacom to T-Series and Hungama tingling with all things NFTs. And like you said, we've got a very, very cool guest on today who will basically school us on everything that we need to know about NFTs. But we've got to think fast first, I suppose.
Yes, we've got to think fast segment. And then before that, we need to take a break because breaks bring advertising. Advertising brings money. And that's what runs startups and businesses. Go in for a break and be right back. Think fast. Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders and change makers from across business, media, marketing and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app or wherever you get your podcast from. Welcome back to Think Fast. We're in our Think Fast segment where we throw random, not really googlies at each other, but throw stuff at each other and ask for quick responses. Most times my questions are longer than Suchita's responses, but we will start with your question first.
Yes, Queen. So, question number 1 for you. Reliance is set to launch Nykaa competitor called Tiara, apparently, as per the Economic Times. What do you think about Tiara by Reliance?
I don't like the name. It's just very
Yes.
like why? Like I didn't know that it was going to be Tiara. I'm like, so I actually think it makes sense. So
I just want to clarify, it's going to be called Tiara. No one knows what the final name will be. Yeah,
I hope it's a work in
WIP.
progress name.
Yeah, it's not the best name. I agree with you.
Reliance getting into everything always seems to make sense because they're the biggest player across everything, right? So it's interesting, but also like, can they build out what Nykaa's been able to build out? The other people who've tried this and not been able to match up to what Nykaa's success is like. But change the name. If it's going to be Tiara, I'm like, that's like a minus 20 right away. But yeah, they should get into the mix. More the merrier. I'm going to buy lots of lip gloss for myself.
Of course.
Anyway, quickly moving on to my first question of the day. Air India is back with Tata. Obviously, Air India has been through this who will kind of take over, when will the government let go of it scenario for a while now. And if you look back in history, this was initially Tata's Airlines, which became Air India, and it's going to come back home in that sense. What do you think about it?
I mean, let's be honest, to a significant extent, it was a distressy sale. And I think, anything in Tata is in great hands. I think they've done a phenomenal job with Vistara and what they're able to bring to Air India. I'm excited to sort of wait and watch. So without too much context about, what this means from a top line or a bottom line or an investment, blah, blah, bullshit perspective, I think anything that Tata does, they usually do it really, really well. So
they own a part of AirAsia as well, if I remember right. So AirAsia in India also has some amount of Tata shareholding. So little bit 3 airlines.
Yeah, airlines have never really worked as, the world's best bet for most folks, Kingfisher being the prime example. But Tata is Tata, and Tata does all things well. In any case, my question for you is, move over unicorns. We're all about those Decacorns now, with Swiggy becoming a Decacorn with its recent round and $10 billion valuation. What is your take on the ever increasing
Forget Decacorn.
bar?
I want to see some Decepticons. It's been a while since the Transformer movie came out. But bad jokes aside, I think it's a good thing, right? I mean, as you scale up, obviously new terms, but some things like if certain businesses are growing to a certain scale, it's important to, I guess, sometimes names really help. I've always felt that you can come up with these names while some people might just like scoff at it. I think it's good to have these names. They make it aspirational, add that little bit of glosser and shine around it. So somebody now tomorrow, like 10 other companies will want to be at Decacorn. So yeah, let's keep the names coming and I'll come up with dad jokes accordingly. Okay, over to my next question. Ola Electric's raises 1,490 crores at a valuation of 37,000 crores. Yeah, we spoke about Bhavesh at the beginning of this episode.
Yep.
Ola Electric's had this very shaky thing going, especially with, I think, about morning context. Everybody else, I think, they've had issues with the press, they've had issues with perception, but still raising funds. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is like Tesla momentum that's, exciting investors, or I don't know if it's this belief that, Bhavish can conquer all, because he obviously was able to build formidable competition against Uber with, Ola in India. I don't know. I think, I shared this recently, but Uday Kotak, in fact, posted a tweet recently talking about how the Fed is going to start pulling back, its purse strings. And obviously, we're seeing, inflation clock up week on week. So I don't know how long this excitement's going to last. Again, like I said, I haven't really evaluated EVs as a segment. I haven't dug deep into it enough. But yeah, I can imagine this year being a little less bubbly than last year was. Last question for you. Speaking of bubbly and things bursting, is Peloton ready to be acquired, Varun?
Is Scott Galloway his prediction finally going to come true? He's been saying for 2 years now that Apple should acquire Peloton.
Yep.
You never know, might be happening. This is an interesting point also to look at product market fit during a certain period of time. People bought a lot of Peloton when the pandemic started because they wanted to exercise at home. Now those people aren't buying more and more Peloton. So I'm guessing at some point you kind of look at a business and what is the repeat purchase value of certain companies, and this might be a bit of a case study in that one.
I mean, I know it's your turn to answer, but I think the one thing that I'll add over there is what screwed up Peloton last year was just their supply chain was all over the place.
That's true.
And they weren't being able to meet, delivery timelines and the like. So I think with them, the challenge more than customers buying into Peloton, because I think they had just sort of, kicked off their little upward climb, through the COVID coronavirus years. But I think for them, the issues and the reason why they're seeming a little bubbly right now is more just their inability to deliver on what they promise. But
they actually have there's a lot of interesting companies here in India who are doing this in a smaller way. Like there's FlexNest and a few others.
Yeah.
I think they are evolving to this space of screen and a trainer. But again, let's see how this plays out. Okay, my last question, as always, which is an extended, very long question. So Caroline Speigel is Evan Spiegel's sister, the Snapchat founder CEO. She started an app called Quinn about 3 years ago. It's an audio porn app. Basically, you can be a creator on it and create audio pornography, right? But this is a large part of it is very Mills and Boons-ish, like some of the pieces that are in this article, in the information which I was reading, talk about how it's giving like a regular person the ability to kind of create interesting content. It's doing really well. What do you think about this? This is a whole different, it's like they're calling it the Peloton of audio porn. What do you think about this?
God. So obviously you had to pick an article from the information which is behind a paywall, and I am subscribing to enough rubbish, so I don't need to add another thingamajig into my inbox. Yeah, with very little context on Quinn, cool name by the way. The Spiegel sibling duo have like a good sort of thingamajig going on with Snap and Quinn and this, that and the other.
So there's this entire movement talking about how obviously pornography over a period of time has been a lot more about abuse and everything else. There's this movement to say, can you still have content that gives you the ability to watch porn, but it's still not pushing towards abuse, pushing towards anything else. This is like a step towards that direction is what she's saying. Still don't know yet. But it's interesting how audio could play a part, because audio leaves many things to the imagination. I'm going to leave it at that.
Of course.
So before this goes into randomness, we will take our next break. Be right back into relevant. I finally have a name for that segment. It's the double tap segment. For the segment where we double tap into topics.
Bro, it is a terrible fucking name. People need to stop saying double tap, double click, circle
double
back.
Click segment?
Oh my God, no.
Clickbait segment.
Yes, sure. Clickbait segment. Okay. Great, done.
Okay, fine. So we'll be back with clickbait double tap segment right after this small break.
Namaste, this is Cyrus Brocha. I am part of the government cancel culture program to remove rubbish off all the different streams available. So what we have is all the collected rubbish we put together on our show. It's called Cyrus Says. It's on IVM podcast. You have to watch it and listen to it. It's on our app. It's on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. There are many different ways. Don't bother me and ask me how. You have to find out. We talk to different personalities. Many of them are known. Some are just people we meet downstairs and invite them up for chai. But the point is, it's fun and it's very therapeutic. So please join in and listen to Cyrus Says.
Welcome back to Think Fast, where we still have a segment we haven't named yet, but I have a great name for, which is called the Double Tap segment, where we double tap into certain topics and talk about them for a brief bit. Suchita, you're going to start this one off.
Yep.
What about?
We're going to be talking about Netflix and India. So first off, I want to give a quick hat tip to the Morning Context. I actually had fun reading a couple of Netflix articles, on the Morning Context. So just to kick off by setting some context, Reed Hastings in a recent interview / in their earnings call spoke about how, they're slightly frustrated was the word used about their not inability but the speed at which they're being able to figure out India. And obviously compared to its competitors, which is Disney Plus, Hotstar and Amazon Prime Video, Netflix is apparently, they don't disclose their numbers, but they're trailing at about 4.3 to 4 million subscribers, while Disney Plus Hotstar is at 36 million subscribers and Amazon Prime Video is at over 17 million subscribers. So the real question that's come up over here is, what is it about Netflix's content strategy that's sort of putting them on the back foot? Obviously, the other, sort of bad news is there's been a tremendous amount of exits / firings at Netflix. They've had, many folks who've taken on the director position either leave or being asked to leave. In fact, the Morning Context article, referenced Shishti Arya, who was recently asked to leave or left at her own accord, whatever the, structure may have been, from Netflix. And she was a head of original content, at Netflix India. So basically, there seems to be this, turmoil happening at Netflix. I've also noticed that a bunch of folks who've been within the marketing teams of Netflix have either joined Hotstar, or I keep seeing LinkedIn updates. But basically, there seems to be a lot happening at Netflix, and obviously that they aren't being able to grow their subscriber numbers despite their, crazy 60% discounting that they pulled off last year in December. Of course, it raises a lot of questions in terms of what is Netflix doing right or wrong. So if I had to ask you, Varun, if you had to, sort of like lead all things for Netflix in India, what would you be doing, and where do you think, do you think they faltered? If you do, where do you think they faltered? And what do you think they should do more of?
I think at some point they didn't focus on regional enough. I think they're doing that now. If you see Minnal Murli, which is doing really well for them, for instance, right? It's really been like a standout, piece for them. It's fabulous. Like one of the best superhero pieces I've seen in the last year. They've gotten to regional a little late. If you look at Amazon Prime, for instance, they got into that very early, like did a lot of acquisitions on the regional side. And in India, what really works in many ways, if you get enough regional mix in there, these Netflix went a lot more Bollywood. Obviously, they started off really well, right? If you think about it, Sacred Games, when it first came out, was like, everybody was kind of blown away.
Hit. Yeah.
After that, they've not really had like a standout hit, like a series that you really want to watch again. I think that's been a bit of a lull there, because you can think of like, if you think of Family Man, think of the other shows that are there, all Amazon Prime, or like obviously Hotstar has its own set of things like with Arya and everything else that happened. But what I also feel kind of hit them is that India's a very different market. Like if you look at all other markets, you will have one Netflix and maybe one Disney Plus. But in India, you have so many and so many TV networks, and a lot of the content has to be local. And sometimes these acquisitions, some things work out, some things don't, right? If you look at like, they got a Suryavanshi on, they got the recent Rajnikant movie, I forget the name of, because it wasn't that good, I still haven't watched it. And a few others, those haven't really been big. I don't know how big they were for the platform, but I think the mix of what is original content that really works and what is, let's say, something that is regional that really works is something you need to figure out. And regional is very low right now. Needs to go up a lot more, and that's really where the numbers will come from. There's this one thing which I saw, said IMDb's best shows of the last couple of years. I think the only Netflix show that shows up is I think Kota Factory shows up, and Kota Factory was an acquisition, right? It was season 1 was on YouTube, and then it came out to Netflix. So I mean, it kind of shows. Right?
Kota
it's TVS show. Yeah, it's a beautiful show.
I haven't seen that. I mean, but they do seem to, now sort of be cleaning up their act, so to speak. In fact, I think with Anushka Sharma's production house, Clean Slate Films, they've signed on, and them as well as Amazon Prime Video, they've signed on, I think, a contract worth $54 million in between Amazon Prime and Netflix. I don't know what the, specificities over there are, but it seems like, and Anushka Sharma obviously was able to deliver a lot of hits with Patal Lok for Amazon Prime, and I think she's got a couple coming up for Netflix. It's really interesting. Back in the day, before Netflix was launching in India, someone who was a part of their like research team reached out to me, and I was called in for an interview, to this like basement research lab type place in Delhi. And they were generally, just asking people who are quote unquote in the scene about, understanding Indian customers and this, that and the other. And the first thing that I told them was, whatever you do, just don't think India is equal to this liberal audience, because it's the opposite of that, right? So don't pander to, what you would do to pander to general feelings, emotions, etc. in the US, because India is a whole other beast altogether. And at the end of the day, man, like what are really the lowest common denominators amongst 1.3 billion people, right? Even if you look at the target addressable market over there is the top 100 million, what are the things that really, bring these 100 million people together? And I think if I had to look at it through that lens, three things that I would, assume Netflix should be doing now if they aren't doing already is, one is, instead of really making their target demo, this like 24 to 30-year-old millennial, liberal leaning millennial, which is what they seem to have done through shows like Masaba, shows like Decoupled, Delhi Crime. I mean, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show. But you know what I mean? Like
they need more masala. Actually, the choice of, for instance, Kapil Sharma doing a stand-up special, right, is actually where they need to go.
Yeah. Oh
if
no,
they really want to
that's
do well.
exactly. So the first thing for me would be shift your TG from like liberal English speaking millennials to Indian housewife. That's what
Yeah.
I would do, number one, which basically means more shows, lesser sort of investments in like, crazy high budget movies. But how do you really create that daily entertainment and that daily dopamine for, a lady sitting at home? How do you really tap into her? The second thing that I would do is I would really ask myself, what is my strategy for sports? The reason why Hotstar is where they are is because they've got cricket, right? So Neil, I don't know what the Olympics would or wouldn't have done for them, but I think
But
what's
Sonali has a lot
really
of cricket. Again, has a lot of cricket. A lot of the stuff that's outside of India, all the series that
Test
happen
cricket
outside
type
India end
stuff.
up on.
Yeah.
A lot of them have come there.
Yeah, so that would be my focus, right? So, for example, like a note that I made here is, where is the last dance for Sachin Tendulkar? So, The Last Dance was a beautiful documentary based on Michael Jordan's life. Can you make that for like an Indian athlete or an Indian superstar? Where's like the Diljit Dosanjh documentary? So that would be the second thing that I would do, which is, what is Netflix's sports approach?
Like there was a documentary on Leander Paes and Mahesh Bhupati, which ended up on Z5. That should have been on Netflix. I mean, I don't think it was well made, but it should have been on Netflix.
Also, like, pick up cricket stars, man. I mean, that's the shit that you need right now. You can't go like niche into, tennis from like 1990. I mean, Mahesh Bhupati and Leander Paes are great, but like in the grander scheme of things, who gives a shit? And I think the third thing that I would really do is, like, I think what they've been able to do is they've been able to tap into this like Indian diaspora content through stuff like Indian matchmaking. Then they had some like, I think they had a show with the Condé Nast team, which was quite terrible. They had like shown videos.
The Fabulous Lives of Bollywood Wives. I'm a huge fan of the show, and I'm glad it has season 2.
But again, that's great content for Indian diaspora, right? It's great for like an NRI sitting in like, the US or wherever else. So I think the questions that I would be answering or, creating content for is like, how do I get that Indian housewife hooked onto my product, my platform?
Where is your Anupama, if you know the show?
No,
most
I don't
popular
know the
Indian
show.
daily soap. It's called Anupama.
Oh, you watch it every day, don't you?
I watch
don't
it, yes. Slyly watch it.
Yeah, and also, like you said, like if you look at their top shows, apart from Kota Factory, which I haven't like watched, but I generally know what it's about. That seems like an obvious hit. Everything else, which is Sacred Games, a little too like out there and too imaginative, may have made for a great, introductory show. But what this second season of Sacred Games was a total flop, if I remember correctly.
Very badly made, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, Delhi Crime, beautiful show, but just fucking heart-wrenching, right? Like, you need shit that lifts people up. House of Secrets, Burari, that's great show, right? Great documentary. But again, bro, like, where is your happy, buoyant, like, tu me, saas bahu? You know what I mean? Like,
maybe not
the kind
saas bahu, but I think you could do a lot more with just... I mean, where is your Arya? Where is your Family Man? To be honest, like that's where I would peg it. Like two shows that did really well for Hotstar and for Amazon Prime. That category, it's a great line. It's still
Saas
very
Bahu doesn't have to be like, Kasauti Zindagi Ki. I'm just saying, give it a Netflix spin. Like for example,
Part 2.
What?
That can go very long. But before I digress further and we take this head, time to go in for our next segment where I will fanboy about the fact that Uday Shankar might be coming back. Just for context, Uday Shankar was arguably one of the most successful media executives the last like a couple of decades, right? Started off as a reporter, went on to head Star News, then went on to become CEO for Star. He saw that rise of Star to really coming on top of like all the channels, right? Really being, from his acquisition of the IPL rights to really pushing for streaming with Hotstar, and a lot of the stuff that went right for Star happened under him. Also was very tight with the Murdochs. So he literally was almost like a founder running Star in India and didn't really have to like get too many sign-offs and all that stuff over there. But after the Disney acquisition, he was around for a bit as their APAC head, but then kind of quit. Obviously, I think cultures didn't match there in terms of working style, because Disney's obviously famously very hands-on with everything and structured in that sense. On the other side, you had Reliance, who owns a large part of Viacom 18 through their acquisition of TV 18. And Viacom obviously owns the second part of it, they've been trying to figure this whole thing out. They're a smaller player, and Reliance being a smaller player, I'm sure is not something that they would ever want. And in the middle of all of this, suddenly he's back with his investment firm, which is he co-runs with the older Murdoch sibling. And they've been investing into a bunch of things around education, health, and media. So they might actually be coming in to help operationally drive what is Viacom 80 now. You don't know what might be called tomorrow. And Reliance is putting a lot of money in. So from what I read in an article, I was seeing they're investing close to 12,000 crores into Viacom 18. So the game is about to change.
I actually haven't been following much television news, so I'm going to let you take the lead on this one. But, of course, I mean, he's gangster, right? And like the changes that... And it's so interesting that he's making a comeback, because literally we guys were just talking about Netflix, and a lot of like the focus of something like a Netflix is about how do you bring fresh energy and fresh perspective into the world of, OTT. And if you see what's happening at Viacom 18, it's almost like how do you bring that discipline, focus, which Uday Shankar was notorious for, back into really not resurrecting, but, giving this the dry powder that it needs to really grow. Yeah. So what do you think he's going to do? What do you think his first moves are going to be?
So Viacom's had a lot of people at the senior level leaving, right? So Danshu Vats, who was their group CEO, left. A bunch of other people left as well over time. So it's been this bit of a lull where they're trying to figure out where it fits in. There was even talk about... So Reliance also had this weird problem where they were trying to do this whole merger of Viacom 18 and Sony. That didn't happen. When Zee went through its issues with their investors, they were again trying to come in there and maybe merge those. And then Zee went and did a deal with Sony. So at some point, this is like an opportunity for Reliance, especially to say, okay, can we kind of solidify this almost media pipeline? Sports going to be a big thing for him, for sure. IPL rights coming up for bidding.
Yeah.
Perfect timing for Reliance to jump in, put the money on the table and get the IPL rights. Wherever the IPL goes, viewers will go, and then just add enough programming and shows around that. I think sports are going to be a big driver there. I think everything else will follow. Also, Viacom 18 has a movie production arm as well. They produce movies. So there's a lot there. But
so
it's kind of been in this weird stalemate, right? For a while.
For someone like me who's been out of like the television world since my BBC days, what's the landscape right now? So, what's the competition over here? Who's ruling the roost?
So Star is obviously, way ahead in that sense, because of Hotstar being the platform it is, sports, everything else. But also Star's also seen a lot of change of hands ever since the Disney thing has happened, but it's been right up there. So I mean, they've kind of held on to that. Everybody else has been kind of mixing things up. So Sony and Zee have had this interesting, like now they're obviously combining, but Sony and Zee also had like great shows that have worked for them. Zee more in terms of series, etc., all that stuff. But Sony's had, Kapil Sharma, KBC, now Shark Tank. So Sony's also almost in a resurgence in that sense, right? Yeah, exactly. So they've been doing well. Viacom 18 kind of like Colors used to be a really solid big name. At one point in time, they were almost competing neck to neck with Star Plus to become number one. Even Raj Naik, who used to run that, also left to set up his own unit around the time Sudhanshu Vats left as well. So it's almost like Viacom was on an upswing. I remember when I used to work there years ago. Weirdly, I worked for both Star and Viacom 18 in my previous stints, and Uday Shankar was obviously super duper boss at that time, and I saw many parts of Viacom 18. Viacom 18 at some point kind of lost, I don't know if lost direction, but what is their central thing went away. Because they also acquired a lot of pieces, they did a lot of South tie-ups. So it needs to be streamlined. You need to say, okay, what is the strategy in the South? What is the strategy for sports? What is their focus on youth? Because MTV is such a strong brand which is gone somewhere right now. Because you also have sports running on MTV half the time because Viacom 18 doesn't have a sports channel. So a lot of stuff to just streamline, put in place. They have Voot, which needs to be made better. And more than anything else, just like pump it into the Reliance and Jio pipeline. I mean, think of all that content going through that, and it still hasn't happened.
So, as a consequence of this, who do you think is going to die? Like, what are the, you know what I mean? Like, who do you think is going to bear the brunt of Mr. Uday Shankar making a comeback?
I feel Star's going to feel the heat because he's obviously going to go after a lot of the stuff which he's done there for sure. Even the Sony Zee merger, I don't think it will really affect things too much. I think they also like kind of come back and upswing, but I think the heat will really go on to Star because if Star loses the IPL, suddenly the sports thing becomes a lot weaker, right? And they have a very solid team which works on sports across the board. They also have Kabaddi, there's no stuff on football. But IPL really holds that one central thing. So if they lose the rights, that's going to be very tricky for Star to kind of manage. So I think Star's going to feel the heat if he comes in because he obviously knows how that functions. He'll bring in a lot of the stuff he's done at Star here. But he's not going to be CEO. He's just coming in to oversee operations is what I read.
Interesting. Speaking of interesting, it's time to bring on our guest. Too excited. Oh my God.
We go for a break and be right back with our guest on Think Fast.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcasts website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
Okay, ladies and gents, we've got a kick-ass guest today. We've got none other than Mr. Nameet Potnis on Think Fast today, who was a previous business head at PayU India and currently is building DrumWorks, which is building businesses in the Web3 space and is helping brands and artists transition from Web2 to Web3. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you are really, really missing out. And he's here today to school both Varun and me on all things NFTs and Web3. So, Nameet, let me kick off with, what got you into all things blockchain, crypto, and how rich are you? Let's start with that, man.
Where are all the Bitcoin stashed?
The fun part about this is everything on the blockchain is public, very, very difficult to hide, which means it's very, very public on what that looks like, how much is currently invested where. I actually started mining Bitcoin way back in 2011, and in 2014, I lost my passwords.
Oh, no.
Phrases. So I can see the money, but I can't touch it. And then such is life.
Oh my God. How does that feel, bro? How does that
Not
feel?
at all.
How often do you go back and start searching for those passwords?
Never.
Huh?
I tried for a few years and then I eventually gave up. I recently, and now since crypto and Web3 and all of these are very, very imminent, my family has found out for the first time that this exists. And now they're having sleepless nights. The ones that I had back in 2014. They're like, how can this happen? How could this not bother you? But yeah, I've made my peace with it.
So let's kick off with, explain it like I'm 5, right? If I'm a noob in all things, Web3, NFT, metaverse, etc., what's like the primer on blockchain, Ethereum, and tokens that I need to know to even get into all things NFTs?
Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to stick to my lane, which is the stuff that I've been spending time on, which is essentially in the NFT domain. So I've spent all my life in payments and commerce. I essentially left that to start from scratch back in the blockchain to start building businesses here. And over the last 4 years, I've now been buying NFTs for a while. Recently, of course, buying them like crazy because the way I buy them is not for a financial upside. I'm buying them because they open up gateways to newer experiences. Right? And I'm hoping to sort of, share that with a bunch of folks to say, while the things that get reported on are somebody bought this for $1 and now is a millionaire, those are incredibly rare. They're also the outliers, right? What you'd rather do is figure out what the medium looks like, and instead of sitting on the sidelines and saying everything here is for people who either have a lot of money or are in this to make a lot of money, what you can ideally do is jump in and figure out the sort of experiences that you've had. So I've made some great friends over the last 2 years in this space because all of us love Japanese poetry. And we have a set of NFTs of Ronins. So samurais who essentially don't have masters are Ronins. And there are some beautifully drawn Ronins available for incredibly low price. And everybody who holds that NFT does Friday catch up on Japanese poems with a professor from NYU, taking you through just historical context. And that's extremely weird for people who don't get it. And the idea is that, right? So this essentially becomes a gateway for you to find people like you, people who have similar interests, right? Of course, you can make a bunch of money if you make the right bets. But ideally, if you approach it from a point of curiosity, I think you might just be surprised by the sheer number of different things that you can do and that NFTs can unlock for you.
So is that what makes NFT special, at least for, folks like you right now? Is it that coming together of like-minded people? Is it community building? Like, is that the trigger? Because it suddenly went from, just like non-fungible tokens. Even my mom knows what NFTs are, right? Which is like peak, hit mainstream.
Absolutely.
To some extent news. So what do you think caused it to escape velocity and really get into popular parlance as it has now?
So there are a few things that have changed, right? One of them is that it's become incredibly economical or cheap to mint an NFT. And as that's happened, the cost of owning one has gone down, which means more and more people can now dream of owning these. So if you've heard of something known as NBA Top Shots, which are just replays of, small clips from the NBA, but ideally they cost a couple of dollars. right? Which means you don't have to have $1,000 to own a piece of something. I actually started back then, right? Buying a bunch of top shots. Coincidentally, the same thing is happening with cricket as we speak. Today, they're going on sale. So a bunch of replays and stuff like that. What that means is that people who actually care about this sort of stuff can now get the opportunity to actually own a part of it. So that's one.
So define own.
Okay. So there are multiple ways in which you can own this, right? The example that I use right now with the NBA or with the ICC, what you own here is a piece of replay that you can use as you please for personal consumption, which means that you own that replay. You can telecast it on your TV. You can take it around. Two benefits. One is you take it around with you. But the second one is when someone checks who owns this across the whole world, it's immutable, which means your name is there. Today, I could have a bat or a picture signed by Sachin, and I could go around telling people that Sachin has signed this, and people would have to believe me, right? What happens now? What happens now is that it's immutable, which means whether it's the truth or it's a lie, it's immutable. It's beautiful. So essentially, NFTs are like us, right? There is just one of you. We are non-fungible. It's just that, which is there is one of you, and there is a way in which you can check who owns that. But that was the beginning, right? What's happening is if you see newer projects like the Bored Apes, the reason why people are going crazy about this is because what they've done is they've released the commercial rights of that under Creative Commons, which means that if you own a Bored Ape, today, of course, you would have to pay a hand and an arm and a leg to own one. But if you bought one back then when they were, negligible amounts, anything you do with it commercially is 100% yours. And which is why people are now using Bored Apes to form a proper music band with Universal repping them and travel the world and make music. Yeah, people are making movies because suddenly everything you do with it, you own. And plus, it's not just you. There are 10,000 other people who own apes. And the more stuff they do with those apes, the more does the core brand become more valuable. So there's more benefit for you to sort of buy into. They've, of course, also, some of these blue chip projects have also become signals, right? Owning one means I am rich, I am someone, I am a part of a premium group. As with all things, a lot of rich money sort of follows into these things, which is why you will see over the last 3 weeks, a bunch of celebrities, right? Everyone from Serena Williams to Eminem and a bunch of folks are now buying Bored Apes because it signals something. But what's happening, and the reason why I love this is because while somebody said, hey, you can own a replay, but it doesn't mean anything. People still bought those. And then somebody's on the diametrically opposite spectrum, which says, once you buy this, it's yours. Whatever you do with it, you make millions of dollars and people are. It's yours, right? Run with it. So that spectrum sort of exists.
When you look at this from the other side, right? One is why people are buying it. The other side is honestly, when you look at it and you're saying that, okay, as a creator, as an artist today, what opportunities does that open up for you? Because I think that's been interesting for a lot of people to kind of tap into, saying, okay, because everybody who is a creator is an artist, saying, okay, do I have to do NFTs? And then you hear terms and everything from, okay, you should make a community-based NFT where you have a bunch of creators coming together and creating an NFT. You hear about smart contracts and suddenly the information just keeps going on and on and on, right? So if I flip it around, saying, how do you see this from the other side of an artist or creator and what opportunities they have?
I'll tell you what I've seen, right? The beauty about this space is that contracts exist. What you make with it depends on you. It's the same thing with the art that you do, right? Are you clicking pictures? Are you creating motion graphics? Are you creating movies? Are you creating sound, right? You could pretty much create anything and suddenly find an audience for it. And the audience doesn't need to be 100,000 people. Actually, it doesn't even need to be 1,000 people. Right? It can literally be 100 people who say, hey, I love the fact that you walk around clicking doors. And there are people out there who would want to sort of say, hey, can I collect those doors and pay for it? So one is because the medium is open, easy, and economical. Almost anyone can do that. What's happening in this space is you're right. So a bunch of folks are saying, hey, can I go ahead and drop a project? Which means everybody who buys into this project now forms a community. And then as we go along, I bring them more. So because they own this particular NFT, can I also, help them buy other projects? Can I do collabs? Can I drop merch? Can I do a bunch of stuff? Just like how you would see with brands, right? Others say, hey, I'm not going to do any of this, right? Like you should check out a photographer, Kat Samad, puts out 3 pictures a year. That's it. She's like, this is it. I'm going to travel all year, every photo that I make takes me 3 months. And I put out 1 picture a year, 3 pictures a year, that's it. And each of those are now, because of this, because there are people who love that, saying, hey, if I buy one of these, even in the next 5 years, there are just going to be 15, which means, I see incredible value, and hence I'm happy to pay not 1 Ethereum, but 25 Ethereum for each of these, which means that the artist now has the power to say how much I want to charge. The artist also has the power to say, do I want to do this as a larger project? Do I want to drop an individual? Do I want to collaborate with a bunch of other folks? So what's happening right now is you can pretty much do anything. All of these are working. A bunch of stuff that worked last year was idly a lot of creatives which people could use as display pictures. It was the first way for people on the web to feel a shared sense of belief. You know what I mean? We're all aching to be a part of a religion, and hopefully one that's not that fanatic, which means that, hey, all of us own cool cats, or all of us own bored apes, and you then take them as your display pictures. And that's something that's continued. But what I'm seeing this year is that people have now started getting experimental, which means they're dropping a bunch of, newer NFTs around music. Right now, you can't see, you can just hear that. People are marrying music with art. People are doing a bunch of stuff around buying land in the metaverse. A lot of those things have started happening where people are happy to experiment. A bunch of these guys have made money, and I'm talking about artists. A bunch of these artists have made money in this space. And the beautiful part is they're more than happy to take all of that back and invest in other artists. At least that's what's happening right now. Right? So everyone who goes up, at least most of them extend that arm out and pull a bunch of others up with them, which is the beautiful part, which is why the community is still growing. You may enter this space not knowing a bunch of artists, but suddenly you realize there are small Discord groups, there are Twitter spaces, there are, online spaces where you can go hang out with others. And they're more than happy to tell you, this is how I priced my art. This is where I distributed it. This is what I've done. We're still early days, so it's still very, very open.
So you're making, the world of NFT sound like Clubhouse before Android, right? So what happens once, you put like steroids on this shit, right? Like what happens once there is, mass involvement? What are the blind sides, right? Like what are the downsides to this, which may not be apparent right now, but can become problematic later?
The beautiful part is, I was going to say all of this is made up, but it's not. In a way, it exists, right? But the beautiful part about this is, one, there is no way to predict what will happen. But the one thing that I genuinely feel will happen is that you will see an explosion where I genuinely believe you will have small communities who really believe in astrology, buy stuff with astrology for 10 rupees, just because you can. Right? Today, at least in emerging economies like the ones that we are in, it's still very difficult to go and buy an NFT. It is. Right? We're extremely privileged because we understand how wallets work and how do you move your rupees or your, rupees into crypto and do that. But it's still not something that's accessible. What will happen is when it becomes accessible, just like what happened with Clubhouse on Android, where everybody wanted to have a say, I believe here everybody will want to own a piece. So I genuinely think it's very possible that instead of 5 people owning Sachin Tendulkar smiling, you will maybe have 50,000 people owning a Sachin hitting a 6 in Sharjah for $50, right? And for them, the kick on this is that when they actually click on it, or someone else clicks on it, their name is there. It's real. It exists, right? Today, if I buy an MF Hussain, I have to bring everybody home and tell them, look at this. Look at what I own. You know what I mean? With this, it's social. It's out there. People can see it. It's a great signal. So I think more people will want to buy as it becomes easier to do that. And see, these are still, I'm talking about transactional beings, right? Which is buying and selling. A lot of these NFTs also give you access to utilities, where utilities means you're a part of a group. So a bunch of folks are saying, hey, can all of us pool in funds? We buy the fact that we pool these funds, all of us get an NFT, and what we do with that money is X. We can either go buy another piece of art, or there is somebody in the US right now called the Links DAO, like Golf Links, who are pooling in funds to say, we're going to go buy a golf course. All of us. With these funds, we're going to go and find and buy a golf course. And this NFT is your membership to the golf course.
Wow.
And I'm not saying it didn't happen in the past. It did. But the biggest difference is today, if there is someone who builds an amazing company, or there's an amazing artist anywhere in the world, and you want to take a part in that, there is no barrier. You don't have to be an accredited investor to be able to invest in this, right? You don't have to have $1 million to be able to buy that art. You could essentially fractionalize it, right? So it's a great leveler. It's also easy for folks to say, I've loved golf all my life. If a bunch of folks are going to go buy a golf course, that's insane. But I want to see where it goes.
Yeah. If we had to circle to, what's happening in India, what is happening in India? Because, for all the, Bored Ape, Yacht Club thingamajigs, you've got like Bollycoin and I don't even know what happening in that general, sketch universe. So what's happening over here?
also happened somewhere between.
Yeah. So what's happening in India?
So honestly, all of this is happening in India, right? We have some great artists coming out of India. You should check out the work Amrit Pal has been doing. Again, he's somebody who's at the opposite end of the spectrum. He's like, I'm not going to drop a 10,000 piece artwork. I'm not going to do all of this. I will drop one a month. That's it. Which is I will do 5 to 7 a year. That's it. And I will sell each of these for 3 to 5 Ethereum. And he has a bunch of people who want to do that, right? You have a bunch of early artists coming together and forming groups. Right. So the NFT Malayali community is a bunch of folks who are from Kerala and, surrounding areas who are saying we're going to come together and figure out how we can create art, how we can pool funds and buy art, how we can create a community where all of us do stuff in the metaverse, but also in, the offline space. So all of this exists, but you're absolutely right. So the idea is because things are that simple, it's very easy for somebody to also go to the other end and then try and scam people, which says, hey, here's a project where I will deliver XYZ. And then when people come and buy into that, walk away. It is possible to do both. I genuinely believe at this point of time, more of the good and more of the creating is happening as compared to all the, like I would put it, the shady stuff. Also, in terms of regulation, we're yet to catch up. Even buying crypto to do this is still very, very limited. Right? Total number of people actually investing is still very limited. So once that opens up, you will start seeing, right? So think about it. Hopefully someday you could actually be able to buy NFTs using UPI, right?
Wow.
Not possible today, right? But all of us have UPI, and a $5 or a $10 on a UPI means nothing. It's extremely simple. It's on my phone. I tap and it's done. Not possible today, but it will be someday. And hopefully in this year, I still feel that a lot of the good will come out. Plus, I genuinely feel that your reputation in this space is still very important. So the right incentives exist for people to not, hopefully, not partake in bad behavior. There are always going to be bad apples, but I think most of them are sorted.
There's this conversation about artists who are non-art in the sense that, let's say someone's a creator or someone's a speaker, podcasters, kind of want to build NFTs and say, okay, it gives you access. And this access-driven smart contract NFT, something which I've been trying to read about and understand, but
nice.
It's almost like membership, like what you mentioned about the golf, it's like membership. And that's where actually you can also have what you just said, is like if someone can promise something and not deliver it. How do you see that space developing? Because I'm hearing a lot of creators talk about that, like just access. You can do meetups if you own this NFT, you can do X and Y. Gary Vee famously did the most bizarre thing in the States where he made people buy 12 books? You buy 12 books, you get an NFT. It's just bizarre for someone who wrote a book. I mean, you buy one book, right? If a person bought 12 books, you get an NFT, which is like such a Gary Vee
Varun,
thing to
have
do.
we checked? It is a Gary. I was just going to say that it's a very Gary Vee thing to do. Varun, have you seen how much money he made by selling those books?
Oh my God.
Crazy.
How much money did he make? As much as how much you hold in your passwordless wallet.
way more, because people like crazy bought those books and not one. 9 of the 12 of those.
12.
It was 12, absolutely crazy. I think it was $4,500 to buy 12 books in India, which is, I have my whatever thoughts on that. But the point is, people have just to answer what you were saying, Varun, is that the thing is, in the future, you will be able to say, hey, this smart contract does not just the access, but also the revoking, right? Which means if I promise X, it's built into the contract to say X will be delivered. If X is not delivered, the contract can go back and refund, revoke, right? Stuff like that. See, all of that exists. Yeah, all of that exists in the infra layer. It hasn't started happening in this layer yet. Right? Like some of the things that you will start seeing, and again, I have my reservations on those, but the point is, you will start seeing this, right? You will start seeing folks wanting to attempt something known as human IPOs. Right? So they're going to say, here's what you can do, right? I make $1,000 a month. I am going to go ahead and I will release a coin or I will release NFTs where what you're buying is me and the income I make. right? And which means the more
There's a guy who built this I remember reading it, it's like everybody from a Kim Kardashian to everybody else was on the exchange, but they had not signed up for it. It was like they had to come and claim it. I forgot which one that was.
I don't remember, but I do remember that happening where you could essentially invest in influencers. But that didn't mean anything because the influencer themselves wasn't setting it up. What's happening right now is there are a bunch of platforms being built where, essentially around the fact that a creator itself is a brand. And what you could do is you could buy into that brand and the future revenue in that brand and whatever, right? It's essentially like an income sharing agreement into a human. And again, I don't know how that would work, but I'm sure those will happen because influencers will say, hey, 15 million people follow me, even if 10,000 of them put on $100. Oh, wow. That's an incredible amount of money, right? So the means to do this exist. What people will do with it will, I think we'll have to wait and watch.
So I have a quick, related question over there, which is, it sounds like a lot of the value creation of NFTs will be a consequence of NFT creators' ability to build a community around the thing that they're making, right? Whether I'm an artist or a musician or, a celebrity influencer, whatever else. Two quick questions over there. Does that mean that the ability to actually monetize NFTs, right? Or the ability to actually create, use NFTs as a income stream or a revenue stream if I'm a creator. Basically, will Pareto principle apply here, where the most popular people will end up, basically Kim Kardashian's going to continue being rich, and then there'll be this wopsy little middle layer, and then everyone will basically be the pedestrians, somewhere floating in the metaverse. How does the concept of NFTs avoid that happening? And basically, my question is what are the distribution streams which make access and creation of NFTs different from, traditional art or just traditional consumption of celebrity?
Sure. So ideally, the thing about non-fungible tokens is that the benefit here is the fact that they're immutable, which means they can be verified. They ideally can't be destroyed if there is a promise built into it, right? Both the one who's issuing them and the one who's buying them can hold each other accountable basis that. It doesn't change the laws of physics or the way society works, right? Which means that if the power law exists and certain influencers have an outsized reach, right? You'll see that right now. So by the way, Facebook is in the process of releasing the ability for brands on Instagram to build this natively into their feeds. When that starts happening, if I have 140 million people following me and I tell them click here to do X, of course, there's going to be an outsized impact. What I do feel though, on the other hand, is, what happened with the early days of the internet? You suddenly realized that you weren't the only weird person who wanted to figure out how to run a router on your own. That's what's happening right now. Again, all over again, right? Which means you're now realizing you aren't the only weird person who loves pictures of, everyone loves pictures of cats, but you aren't the only weird person who loves X, Y, Z. And you just need to find those 10, 15, 50,
find
100 people. Yeah, it is pretty much that, right? And artists are taking both approaches to it. To say, I'm going to go and actively build this. To say, everyone who buys my art, can I bring them together? Or can I go into communities and introduce them to my art? And then the others are saying, so, the joke in the NFT space is that when you create a project like Bored Apes or CryptoPunks or any of these, right? The thing that most investors want to know is, what is your roadmap? If I buy into this today for, let's say, 1 Ethereum, what is going to happen in this space that the value of my asset is going to go up? And hence, what is the roadmap? Right? And a bunch of artists are pushing back to say the art is the roadmap. Which means I'm not going to say, hey, I'm going to build, a bunch of things and I will collaborate with others and I will do all of that and I will let you come and talk to me. Nothing. This exists, this costs X. If you want to buy it, you do. And a lot of those, again, have taken the stance to do that. And again, they've done incredibly well. So the beauty is folks have found their tribes and that's worked. Folk have been, right? So there are a bunch of pseudonymous artists. No one knows who they are, but their art is incredibly expensive because they're experimenting with this new medium and creating art in this space. Right. So ACK, which is Alpha Century Kid, is somebody who's been creating a particular kind of art. And then just recently, I think about 15 days ago, put out a tweet saying that I'm working on something new. And someone replied saying, hey, without seeing it, I am willing to pay 100 Ethereum. Can I just buy it? Right. And into that contract of transferring the NFT, they essentially built like we said, right, smart contracts can do both, give and take. They build the fact saying as soon as somebody pays 100 Ethereum to it and this NFT gets transferred, it hits this person's wallet and then gets pulled out. They don't own it. And this essentially goes to something known as a burn address, which means you burn the NFT, right? And the artist said, with this last piece of art, that's it. I'm killing the artist. No more art will be made, right? My point is crazy stuff like this is happening. For folks who want to invest in stuff like this, it exists. And then for folks who want pictures of flowers or pictures of cats, again, that exists. So I think it will still be, the power law will exist. Celebrities will have outsized impacts. But what you're also seeing in this space is celebrities want to come and appropriate the impact of certain projects. So a Serena Williams isn't launching a Serena Club. She's coming and buying into a Bored Ape. Because somehow projects are now larger than those, which means I'm sure Kim K will do something and have her own branding on that. But a bunch of others are buying into projects because of what they see that, as in that's a bigger signal than saying I'm going to launch a club, at least as of now.
Yeah.
Also, you have Snoop Dogg creating the Snoopverse, which I think is the best thing ever.
Man, incredible.
That is like the best idea ever. Like I would buy into that. Like that is what I would buy. Snoop Dogg Snoopverse.
I did. Right. So I bought a bunch of those NFTs which give you access to the metaverse in Decentraland where you can go and listen to him playing music. I'm like, this is it, man. If not this, then what? Right.
Oh, man.
Snoop Dogg is the best.
He really is. He really is. Last question for you, which is, if there's folks like Varun and me, right, who still haven't lost their crypto virginity and are like, figuring out what to do with all things. Have you, Varun? By the way, I don't know why I'm speaking on your behalf.
Not yet.
Yeah, see, there you go. We're dipping our toes. Where do we start? How do you make, how do noobs like us make sense of this apart from, saying GM, bag me and all that other shit on Twitter?
Yeah, so the thing is right now, the way Web3 till now worked was, it was a lot about the core protocols being built, right? Which meant everything was very, very tech. You needed to get it to be able to do that, right? And people spend a lot of time on that, which means at least setting up a wallet now is relatively easy. But otherwise, everything else from how do you do this is still very core protocols. The pipes are being built. The consumer experiences are not. Right. This year onwards, or let's say mid last year onwards, is when the consumer experiences have started being built. So now you will see a lot of companies being built around, hey, you don't need to find a ways to save your phrase because if it gets lost, you're dead. Right? Can it be saved automatically in my Apple keychain, or can it be saved on my Google Drive, which is a much more consumer way of doing that. So you'll start seeing more and more of that happening right now. Plus, you will also start hopefully seeing a bunch of brands trying to simplify the bridge in which people can experience this, right? Which is one of the reasons why at my end, while we're building a bunch of products, we actually launched a small media company called the Token Dispatch, which ideally sends out one email every morning, which should take you less than 4 minutes, which tell you what are the 3 most important things that have changed in the Web3 space yesterday that you need to know about. What's happening with that is a lot of people can read this in plain English, right? And they understand what's happening. We're actually launching one this weekend, which is essentially called Beyond JPEGs. And the idea is this is only about NFTs, which means what's happening, where do you buy these, how do you experience these? But today, a lot of this information is, of course, available, but it's very, very spread out. Or you have folks who started creating courses to say, come here, I will teach you how to do this. Extreme ulterior motives. I don't know how those work. But honestly, if you had to start today, what I would recommend is spend some time to look at if there is any art that you like out there. Go to OpenSea, OpenSea.com, right? OpenSea is like the eBay, where there is everything, right? And then there's a rankings there of projects based on pricing. Figure out what sort of pricing, and the pricing starts from literally $5. Figure out what sort of a pricing works for you. Click on that project, check it out, see if it appeals to you. And the thing you do after that is you essentially jump into their Discord. And in Discord, you will find folks who are with all levels of complexity. So folks who are moving to crypto for the first time, as well as folks who've been here for a while, and they're happy to tell you, hey, this is how you do this. These are the sort of signals that you look at. At least as of today, it is still a lot of this in smaller communities within Discord. Eventually, you will have large media brands which will hopefully educate you on this. But today, I would still recommend checking out Discord or following the Token Dispatch.
Yes. And if you need any more
subscribe
information,
right away.
Yes. And guys, please follow Nameet on Twitter. He's at Nameet.et. of course. And unlike me, who may add a dot eth at the end of her name for funsies, Nameet.
I don't think you should say it. I think it's ETH. I'm just like,
Yeah.
It's
but
ETOs. Sorry,
there
guys.
are a lot of ways of saying it.
Oh,
Yeah, but my
this is
Twitter,
Varun's way of flexing.
Yeah.
This is Varun's way of saying, I
Yeah,
know one more
I
thing than
know.
you do.
yes, man. And now you can make an NFT into your profile
Whatever,
picture if you
bro.
have Twitter
Varun
Blue.
GM, wag me.
I did my homework for this
There
episode.
you go.
That's incredible.
I asked
yeah.
Dhruv to do homework for this episode. I was like, please read up and send me questions.
Yeah, but you see a
but
lot
this
of
is-
brands doing that. A lot of brands will essentially say, hey, there are power users who own these. Can I appropriate that? So Twitter will
Yeah.
say, can you click and can I show you the NFT instead of just saying, this is a picture.
Yeah.
A lot of that will happen.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And I think once the larger brands make this, pop culture and commonplace, you'll see more and more of, average person understanding, Aam Aadmi understanding also pick up. But this has been awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Nameet.
so much.
This was like a phenomenal primer, and we're going to keep calling you back as we also become a little bit more advanced with the world of ETH and everything else and NFTs, and we're all going to go check out.
Snoopverse. We'll do an
Snoopverse.
episode of the Snoopverse at some
We
point.
should definitely do that, because what you should do is Snoop has an alt account called Cosmo de Medici, like the Medici family, which a lot of people didn't know about. He's actually one of the biggest collectors in the space, but it was always under an alt account. So no one knew it was him.
Oh my God.
Look at Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Jesus. Ahead of the curve, man. Ahead of the curve.
By miles.
Works.
No, but this was fantastic. You should, hopefully, post this episode, we should get both of you to start buying some NFTs for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially if they start at like $5, I'm in, man. I'm in.
Yeah,
I can play those bets. Follow Nameet at nameet.eth on Twitter and check out the Token Dispatch. I'm going to subscribe to it right now. And yes, guys, tinker around on OpenSea and get into the world of all things NFTs. Thank you so much for this, Nameet. This has been awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
Oh my God. Are you like tingling? I'm tingling. I'm going to like
I'm opening a wallet right now, and I'm going to get free tokens.
I'm going to
that
wake
was.
up every morning
NFTs.
and post GM on my Twitter and signal. Oh my God. I can't believe, like, dude, this was awesome. And also,
cool.
like, he broke it down. I mean, for a jackass like me who, generally is a little intimidated by this space also because you don't know what you're signing up for, really broke things down. But before I keep fangirling over Nameet, let's take a quick break and be back with more love for Nameet and our recommendations for the week. BRB, guys.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.
And we're back, ladies and gents. Varun, wasn't that fun?
So cool.
Oh my God.
I'm making my wallet as we speak.
How do you make a wallet? Actual question.
Basically, we'll have to sign up onto one of these apps and create a wallet.
One of these apps. Varun, you don't know. You're going to be Googling right after this.
No, you end up having to just have a crypto wallet. You can create a crypto wallet by going to one of these apps, which is a crypto trading app. You've seen so many ads.
Yeah, that's true.
What is it? WazirX, CoinSwitch, Kuber, all of these.
Yeah. No, but I think it's great. I mean, like my immediate takeaway was, I don't know where this is going, but if this can get people to appreciate the softer things in life, I'm all for it, man. Yeah.
My recommendation for this week is Anupama Chopra's new book. I just moved. See, my voice went away because I didn't realize this podcast noob thing. I moved the book in front of the mic. She's written a new book. It's called A Place in My Heart. A lot of stuff from all the interviews, conversations she's had across Bollywood over the years. I still remember reading her book about Sholay. It's one of the best books I've read for the making of a movie in the Indian context. And this book has got a lot of snippets from across the board. Anupama is also super sweet. And she genuinely writes stuff from a I don't want to shit on anyone, but I also don't want to randomly pump someone up. So she's got that. I find that she has a lot of balance. So yeah, read Anupama's book. It's out.
My recommendation for the week is if you basically like really trashy shows, but don't want to go like all the way into Real Housewives / Keeping Up with the Kardashians, check out this show called Yellowstone. So basically, Yellowstone is either on Amazon Prime Video or is on Hotstar. Figure it out. But what an excellent show, guys! It has
Prime.
It's on Prime. Thank you, Varun. It has Kevin Costner, and it's basically about like this like wild west, old uncle who owns a ranch, and his like kids have daddy issues and this, that, and the other. It's like full masaledar. This is the kind of show Netflix needs to have, but like a Kate version of it. But super duper show. It's like it's really like Mardhar and like all over the place. But if
Stone. Made in Kerala.
I'm just going to ignore that, guys. Please watch Yellowstone if you like, trashy. And the only reason I'm calling it trashy is not because it's a bad show. It's just like very random. But really good
Gokula
show.
Stone, Gujarati version. We can do it like multiple states.
My God, Varun is really in a mood today. That's it. This is the episode, guys. Recommendations done. Great guests done. 2 killer short segments done. Think fast done. Can we call it a day? Varun,
Double tap segment is done.
Oh God, double tap segment is what we're going to refer to it as now.
Yes.
Can we call it a day?
We will end this by saying toodles. So I think toodles is a nice way to say bye. Toodles.
Bye, Varun. I will.
Bye.
I will see you on Twitter at suchita.eth. ETH.
Not yet. I need to go buy a monkey picture.
Yeah, I will. What do you want to make an NFT of? Like, what's the first thing you would make an NFT of?
People to invest in my topless photographs.
Oh my God, guys! This show has
podcast,
hit a new low. This show
we'll
really
do podcast archives. NFT will give people access to all podcast archives.
Songs were like the new low, but guys, there you go. We go one step lower. Yes. No, but in any case, toodles, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode and have a good week.
Toodles.
Hiya.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to founders Dinesh and Vivek about the path-breaking changes their AR edugaming startup PlayShifu has brought about. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita talk to communications consultant Karthik Srinivasan. He shares his insights on brand stories, woke culture, and regional content. On Cyrus Says, a cock and bull episode with ex-producers Naveen Narona and Abbas Momin. Cyrus asks if they ever participated in a fancy dress competition. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila Institute folks discuss the importance of digital equity in achieving true progress. And on Probation Se Promotion Tak, Abhinav gives us tips to be mindful of before seeking a mentor. Also, just one quick announcement for everybody. We would like you to check out the new version of our Android app. It's available on the Play Store. It's a really interesting take on how to listen to podcasts. Do give it a look and let us know what you think. We're open to feedback on all of our social media channels. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, do remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth really does help. And don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. And you can also check us out on YouTube. And we have a number of channels there at ivmpodcast.com/YouTube where you can take a look at them. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Do you like true crime stories? Do you like to learn about the people behind some horrible, awful crimes? More specifically, women that may have committed these crimes. Actually, Indian criminals that are women? Then we'd like to welcome you to our podcast, Misconduct. My name is Raghavi.
And I am Nisha. We cover themes like murder, dacoity, drug trafficking, financial fraud, kidnapping, and many more. You can catch us every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcast.